So let's see where we're up to over here. In Meseches Beya, we're up to 11b. So we were talking about in the Mishnah, we had a disagreement with Beshama and Beis whether you're allowed to return uh, this those they call it stores or those boxes that they sell merchandise from. So we have a double. Beis Shammai doesn't allow even to open it, meaning to remove that the box is closed, and what you have to do is you have to remove like a board. He doesn't even allow you to remove it. And Beis Hillel, on the other hand, he even allows you to close it back up. Of course, removing it is a more direct connection to the yontif because you can sell stuff to the people so they can have a yontif, food and things like that. So that would be a bigger necessity for yontif. But Beis Hillel actually allows you even to bring it back because if you don't allow them to bring it back, they won't open it, and we want them to open it because we want them to provide the food. But now the Gemara says like this, that uh, Masnisin, our Mishnah, which says that they are arguing in both cases, and in other words, that Beis Shammai doesn't allow to open up those trisin, those that boards, those trisin, or that these
Shutters.
shutters. He doesn't allow you to remove the shutters. So the Gemara says we have a different brisa in which even Beis Shammai allows that the only machloikis is to return. Let's look inside. Zog the Gemara Masnisi in our Mishnah Taitz Rashi. What our Mishnah? The Masnis in the Katoni Besiluk Nami Pligi. Our Mishnah that says that states that there is also a machloikis. There's also a disagreement of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel with regards to removing the trees, the trisin, also the removal lachatchila is lavke haitane does not go like this other tane that we learned. Is the loike haitane is not like this tane. In other words, the tane de Raisa we learn that there is no problem according to everyone to open those shutters. The only question would be, the disagreement would be to return it. The Tanya, we learned in the Braise, Omar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Moidim Beis Shammai u Beis Hillel, that both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, they both agree, Shemesalkines atrisim beyontiv, that you could remove these shutters on Yontif. Oy nechleku. When did they argue? Their argument was only Elul HaHachzir. So that's not like our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says they're arguing about both. In Rav Shimon ben Elazar's Braysid, where he says that they're only arguing about bringing back, but to take out even Beis Shammai he allows. Shebeis Shammai emrim ein machzirin ubeis Hillel af machzirin. About returning, Beis Shammai says no, you can't return, and Beis Hillel say no, you can also return. So that's one thing, that they're only arguing about taking returning, but not about taking out. Everybody agrees that's okay. It says in that brisa. Then the brisa says further, Bamed dvarim amurim. Even in this case, to bring back, the only time you're not allowed, b'yesh yesh lahem tzir, that they have a um, a hinge, uh, a hinge, which means you don't just put it in, but there is a hinge over there. And Rashi explains, what does it mean, Yashlam Tzir? Yodois Lishnei Roshim, there's like hands sticking out. In other words, they fit in uh, into the grooves over there. They have hands that fit in. It is the Doimis Libinyan. That is seems like a building. Avol ein lohem tzir, but if they don't have these hinges, I call them hinges. Uh, what would you call like I don't know, whatever. Divrahako mutter, then it's mutter. If you're just putting in the shutters in and out, there's nothing holding them, nothing, no tzir. That'll be okay. Then there's not even a problem according to anybody. Right? The Gemara. However, we have a question on this. So, first of all, this Beitzah disagrees with our Mishnah, which quotes Beisham Hill arguing on both. But Rav Shimon ben Elazar says no. He says only lahavzit. Another thing this Beitzah said that it's only the issue if there is a tzir, but if there's no tzir, then it's mutter. The Gemara challenges that, but we learned in a Beitzah that b'she'ein lohem V'amedvarim amurim b'she'ein lohem tzir. That even Beis Shammai that does allow, he only allows if there's no hinge over there. Aber yesh lam tzir, but if there is the tzir, divrei hakol asur. We say just fakert. Here he's saying the opposite, that if there is a tzir, then everybody will say it's asur. The previous Bryce stated that if there is no hinge, then it's okay according to everybody. In this Bryce it says punkt fakert, the opposite, that if there is a tzir, then it's also according to everybody. But Tanya, look the Rashi. Mishtanya b'she'ein lohen tzir hu deshari beis Hillel, that he only allowed if there is no tzir. That's when beis Hillel. Avo b'sheyesh, but if there's a tzir, it's also. Here you're saying the only thing what is allowed, the only problem is if it has a tzir. If it doesn't have a tzir, then it's okay. And over there we're saying that the machlokes is when there ain't lam tzir. That's when he allows. But yesh lam tzir will be divrei hakol also. So Omar Abai. So Abai is going to resolve now all these differences. Omar Abai. So Abai says like this: the kule almot, all of these opinions, which means who is the all opinions? Tarvayu hanach tanoi de Beitzah. These two tanoim in the Beitzahs, the Parshilon Plukto de Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, who explained to us the machlokes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, both of them, they hold b'sheyesh lahem tzir min hatzad divrei hakol osur. If there is the hinge is on the side, that looks like a regular building, then everybody take a hold its osur. That is when a tzir is no good. Divrei hakol tzar. Ub'she'ein lahem tzir koliker. And if there is no tzir whatsoever, divrei hakol mutter. And we'll see. Then ein lam tzir hakol mutter. So when it says yesh lam tzir divrei hakol osur, is talking about if it has a tzir in the middle. I mean a tzir in the tzad, minatzad. Ein lam tzir koliker divrei hakol mutter. If there's no hinge at all, then it's mutter. Kipligi, when do we have a disagreement between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel? B'sheyesh lahem tzir be'emtza. There is a tzir, it's in the middle, and Rashi says ke'ein plito, whatever that means. V'toichvin oisoi b'choir shebe'emtza doifen Pesach HaTeva. Atzir be'emtza, I think what it is, you put what do they call these like that hold the hinge together, that middle piece? You know
Pin.
what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Uh that that piece of the hinge, I guess you have something running in the middle of the wall from the top through the bottom goes into the hole, something like that. Because Rashi says, "V'toichvin oise b'choir," you stick it into a hole, shebe'emtza doifen Pesach HaTeva, which is in the middle of the panel of the opening of the teva.
So what it might be is think of a board of wood, and you have from the above the board to below the board just a piece of wood or metal that blocks you from opening it. So it's not necessarily a hinge, but
But
it
Rashi says here, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but Rashi says v'toichvin oisoy b'choir. You take that seer and you stick it into a hole. It's almost like you're closing it up with that with a piece. You stick it into a hole. Where is the hole? The hole is in the middle of the wall, which is the entrance of the box. Okay, whatever the exact case is, we'll turn the page.
but my question is not necessarily how it works, but how why is it that
Oh, so we're waiting the Gemara. The Gemara is going to explain. Well, let's go turn the page. Use Beis with Aleph. So if it's in the middle, so we said like this: if it doesn't have any tzir at all, you just put the gutter shutters in and on, no problem. If there is, um, if there is, uh, if there's a tzir on the side, then it's usr. The question is, what is when it's in the middle? The tzir is in the middle. So Mar Savar, Beishamai say, we're not going to let you, even though the tzir is in the middle, Gazrin on tzir be'emtza, or to tzir min hatzad. It's pashet a gezerah. If we're going to allow you to use the tzir that's in the middle, then you might come to use from the tzad. The tzad is no good, we said. That's too much of a structure. So Beishamai don't want you to even use the one that is in the middle. Umar Savar and Beis Hillel hold legazrinon that we don't worry about since it's only in the middle, and the middle is not a building, and therefore you can do it. Let's see what Rashi says. Umar Savar Beis Hillel, and that's Beis Hillel legazrin. And Rashi explains that all of these brises are not really arguing. Uvahanoch masnita loy aflik. These brises are not disagreeing. Elomar ashmi inon choda. One was teaching us one halacha. Umar ashmi inon choda was one halacha. Veloy pligi, and there's no disagreement over here. Masnisi kamayim, the first brise, hachikamar. He says like this. Bamedvorim mamurim, he says, b'she'ein lahem tzir be'emtza. B'she'esh lam tzir be'emtza, when they have a tzir in the middle. That is when we have a machlokes between B'Shamai and Beis Hillel, like we said now. B'Shamai is goyzer and Beis Hillel is not. Avol ein lahem tzir koliker, but if there is no tzir altogether, there's nothing to worry about. Divrei hakol muter. then it'll be mutter. That's the first brisa that we brought down after the Mishnah before. The Tana Basra Hochikomar, and the last brisa said Bamed Vorim Mamurim the Nachluku. When do we say the argue b'she'ein lahem tzir min hatzad? That when they don't have a tzir on the side, avo b'sheyesh lahem tzir min hatzad, divrei hakol osir. Everybody said is osir. In other words, you can say everybody holds its osir if the tzir is min hatzad. You can say that everybody says mutter when there is no tzir. And the machlokes is when there is a uh, machlokes is when there's a tzir in the middle. Is it like min hatzad? Do we geyser min hatzad? Bisham is geyser. Bisil is not geyser. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do the next Mishnah. Now, sure, we always come across this concept, which is called mitoich shehutra l'tzeirach, hutra nami shaloi l'tzeirach. So we know, of course, that on Yontif, one is allowed to cook, and one is allowed to carry on Yontif from Rishus HaYochid to the Rishus HaRabim, or the other way. There's no, why is one allowed to carry? Because it's all considered a need for the food. It's all food. You carry the food, you bring the food, it's all connected to the food. The question is, are you allowed to carry anything? Or you're only allowed to carry food? What is allowed to carry? Because the Torah specifically allows oichel nefesh, food. Question is, do we extend it? Do we say, since the Torah says you can carry when you need to, so that means that carrying on Yontiv is not prohibited. So you can carry whatever you want. Or we don't say it. So let's look inside the Mishnah. Beshamai is saying, Ein moitzin, you can't carry out, take out from the house to the public domain, loy es hakotten, not a minor. And that's just an example. Rashi says, loy es hakotten, kol midi delav tzedech. You can't carry anything which is not for the purpose of eating. Carrying out the minor is not for eating. And the same thing is v'lo yas halulav. You want to shake the lulav. On Yom Tov, you're not allowed to carry it. V'lo yas sefer haTorah, and not a sefer Torah. L'reshus harabim. So you can't carry anything which is not for food, not a minor, not a lulav, not a sefer Torah, to the public domain. Beis Hillel, matirit. Beis Hillel says it's okay. So the Gemara assumes, why is Beis Hillel say okay? Because once we allowed you to carry for food, we also allowed you to carry anything. You can carry a minor, you can carry a lulav, a sefer Torah, to the public domain. We don't care anymore because it's allowed. That's Beis Hillel. And Beis Shammai says no. So Gemara. Zog the Gemara, Toni Tano Kamed Rabbi Yitzchok Barav Dimi. So there was a Tana who was teaching a Beitzah in front of Rabbi Yitzchok Barav Dimi. And what did he teach? What did he say? He said, Hashoichet oilas nedove b'yomtim. One who shechts a korban oila, that is a gift. Now, if it's an oila which is a mandatory, the Torah says that they should shecht it, so that's not a problem. Like you have the oilas that you brought, the musaf, the tamid, those are mandatory, so there's no question the Torah allows that. But here he's doing an oila which is a nedava, which is a gift, and shechting. If he shechted, let's say, not an oila, he shechted a shlomim, so that's eating. Then it's oichel nefesh. Then the shechting is for food consumption because you can eat it. But an oila is totally burned. So that means that the person doesn't have any part of it. And therefore, he says, if one shechts an oila, nedavo, it's not obligated, and it's totally consumed on the mizbeach. So then, beyond uh, so then then he would get lashes. Then he would get malchus. Oilas nedava, zokt Rashi. The ilu, why do we say an oilas nedava? Because the ilu oilas chayva, because had this been a obligatory oila, chayvas hayoyim, which you have to bring for the day, you bring the oila for the korban tamid, the Rachmana Sharia, the Torah allowed it. The Torah says you can shecht it, there's no question, you can do that. Avol zu, but this, that you're bringing a gift, yesh lakriv v'lacha Yom Tov, you should offer it after Yom Tov. There's no reason for you to do it on Yom Tov, and therefore like it. What kind of malchus, what kind of prohibition, what lav did you violate when you shechted? So he says, Mishum loisasa kol malacha. On Yom Tov, we have a general rule not to do any malacha. Shechting is a malacha, and therefore you'll get the lashes for shechting the oilas nedava on Yom Tov.
But someone
That,
would want to do it on Yontif because, if they're on Aliyah or regular, that's the only time they're in Yerushalayim to do it.
yeah, but that's not enough of a reason to violate a clear prohibition of the Torah. I mean, you have to wait, but you can't if it's not for the Yom Tov, it's not a nefesh, then you can't shecht it because you're violating the prohibition of Lesasa Kol Malacha.
But a nedava is that a burnt offering or is that don't they eat?
Oila is a burnt offering, but it's a
Oh, an
nedava,
olas.
it's not a mandatory. That's why
Mhm.
it's a burnt offering. So an oila, that's why there's no part to the owner, so you can't say you're shechting it for Eichel Nefesh.
Okay.
So Amar Lei, so this is what the rabbi, the Tana, was teaching in front of Yitzchak Baradim. So he says, the Amar Lochmani, the one who told you this, goes like whom? Who holds this? Bishamahi. That goes according to Bishama. He wants to equate our Mishnah, the machlokes of Bishama and Besilil, whether you're allowed to carry on Yom Tov things that are not food, because he thinks the machlokes is, that's what Rabbi Yitzchak Baravdim is telling him. He said he thinks that the reason is, why is the machlokes? Because according to Beis Shammai, you're not allowed to do only Eichel Nefesh. According to Beis Hillel, once you can do it for Eichel Nefesh, Metech Shehutra, you can do it here too. So he thinks, Rabbi Yisrael Adimi, the same thing to be Shechita. According to Beis Hillel, since we allow you to shecht it, when you need to eat it, so Hutra Shechita, so it's also mutter, even shalol tzarech, even when you don't need it for the food. The same logic as you're allowed to carry hutra when you need it is hutra shalol tzarech. So the fact that he says that you're going to get malchus, he says the one who told you goes like Beishamai, the Amri, because Beishamai hold loy amrino metoch shehutra itzol tzarech. We're not going to say, since carrying has been permitted when necessary, because when you need to eat, it's part of carrying, is part of Eichel Nefesh. We should also allow to do it when you don't need Eichel Nefesh. That's why Beis Shammai asks to carry the cotton, the lulav, and the Sefer Torah. And he says, the Beis Hillel, because if you should go like Beis Hillel, that one who taught you that, Amri, but don't Beis Hillel say Um, they say, "Mitoich shehutra haitzah l'tzorech, hutra nami shelo l'tzorech." They allow you to carry the lulav of the cotton the Sefer Torah because since we allowed you for l'tzorech, hutra nami shelo l'tzorech. Hachinami, so the same thing should apply here. Mitoich shehutra shchita l'tzorech, hutra nami shelo l'tzorech. Since we're allowed to shecht when we need for Sudas Yontiv, you're allowed to shecht on Yontiv. So now you can shecht even on a list of Dava. And therefore, when you say he gets Malchus, cannot go according to Beis Hillel, it goes according to Beis Shammai. That's what the Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Avdin told him. Matkiv lo Rabba attacked this, he challenged this. He says that maybe another reason, maybe the reason why Beis Hillel say it's okay, it's not because they allow no, that's not allowed. They believe if it's not Eichel Nefesh, you're not allowed to do it. How come Beis Hillel allow you to carry the lulav of the Sefer Torah, the cotton? How come they allow you? That's a whole different reason. Because maybe Beis Hillel holds that the whole laws of carrying don't apply to Yom Tov. On Yom Tov, l'chatchila, there's no prohibition on carrying. Carrying is only Asr on Shabbos. The reason why Beis Hillel disagrees on Beis Shammai is not because Beis Hillel holds, oh, hutra l'tzoyrach, we can do it also shaloi l'tzoyrach, so you can just get. He holds there's no prohibition at all. Let's look inside the Gemara. Matkif lo Rabba. So Rabba challenged this. B'mai de Beis Shammai Beis Hillel b'ha pligi. How do you know that this is what Beis Shammai are arguing? Whether you're, if it's hutra l'tzoyrach, you can do shaloi l'tzoyrach, and that's why you're asking me about shchita also. Dilma be'eruv v'hitzah l'Shabbos. Maybe it's that there is an eruv in carrying it out when it comes to Shabbos. Ve'ein eruv v'hitzah l'Yom Tov kamifligi. But there is no eruv and no carrying when it comes to Yom Tov. So there's Yom Tov doesn't even have carrying at all. Let's look at Rashi. Be'eruv hitzah, which means why are we talking about im nesra hitzah b'Yom Tov? Usually for Shabbos we make an eruv, so we're not carrying it. But if it's not prohibited, then you don't need an eruv. So he says, eruv hitzah, im nesru hitzah b'yom tov. This is the question: is carrying out prohibited on yom tov? And did they institute the laws of eruv chatzeres yom tov or not? That's the machlokes. Is there such a thing, a prohibition on carrying on yom tov? And that's why, according to Beis Hillel, it's okay. Not because hutra l'tzorech, hutra namashaloi l'tzorech. It's because there's no prohibition against carrying a yontav in the first place. Ein ira v'tzochel. But what does that mean? Rashi has to explain over here because carrying is really based on a pasuk. It's not on. It's not like the rabbis who decided that it's a malacha. It says like this: Ba'afal gav the ikir hitzah mevayaviru kol b'machne nachaf kilon. We learn from a pasuk. The main thing when it says al yuviu oid melacha, so we learn from there that you can't carry on Shabbos. So that would be the thought that it's from the Torah. So how would it not apply to Yom Tov? But he says, but there's a pasuk. But Yirmiyahu Pirish, but Yirmiyahu came along and he qualified what the Torah says. Shaloi Nesra Elo b'Shabbos. Yirmiyah says only in Shabbos, as the Gemara will bring out in a minute. Mishum Hachi Kosharu, and that is the reason why Beis Shammai said it's okay. Beis Hillel say it's okay. Avol Shechita. On the other hand, we're discussing here about shechting. Shehi Av Melocha Ubichlal Loisasa Komalochi. Shechita is one of the main categories of work. And that's included when the Pasuk says on Yom Tov don't do work. That would include Shechita. Hey Malach, then I'll tell you, Afilu Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel doesn't disagree that im hutra l'tzerich lehutra shelo l'tzerich. So therefore, the halacha that you quoted, the Tani Tane, uh, that you get loike can go according to Beis Hillel as well, because Beis Hillel never allowed shelo l'tzerich. The only thing is there is no isur erovin hitzoam an yontiv, but shchita there is. It's part of l'sasa komalocha. So, and therefore, by shchita it should be also according to Beis Hillel also. So why do you say that this Tane only goes according to Beis Shammai? It can go also according to Beis Hillel. And Rashi brings the Gemara brings the posik. Kediksiv Yirmiyah, the posik in Yirmiyah, v'loy soitziu masim mebatechem b'yom haShabbos. He says very clearly, he stipulates you can't carry a load from your homes on the day of Shabbos. B'Shabbos in, b'Yom Tov loy. On Shabbos yet, but on Yom Tov no. So why are you saying that this Tana that says that shechting and oilus nedova gets malchus does not follow Beis Hillel? Because according to Beis Hillel, Matech Shehutra, no, that's not true. How do you know that? Beis Hillel may never give an allowance for Hutra Shalil Tzerich. The only reason is because he thinks that there's no Isser. According to Beis Hillel, there's no Isser of carrying on Yontif B'chlal, because we learn it out from the Pasuk that only on Shabbos, but not on Yontif. So, uh, so the Gemara says the fact that the Mishnah Matkil Rabbi he says no, you can't say that. He attacked this question of Rabbi. Rabbi Yosef challenged Rabbi's question. He says, "What kind of question is that?" Because the Mishnah is talking about carrying uh, a cotton, carrying a Sefer Torah, carrying a lulav. Uh, the fact that the Mishnah doesn't say carrying stones, why does it give these examples? If there is no Isur Haitzah, the whole idea of muktzah, of tiltal, not moving, is all based because you might carry it. That's the basis for it. If there is no Isra, so according to Beis Hillel, so let him have an argument. Are you allowed to carry stones or not outside on Yontif? Elamato. The Svira Lula Beis Hillel ain't Isra Tzol Yontif that Beis Hillel holds. There's no prohibition of carrying on a Yontif. Liflugu ba'avonim. Let them argue by stones. Rashi explains. I ein Isur Haitzah. If there is no prohibition against carrying out any tiltal, then there's no prohibition of moving of muktzah. Shaloi nesar tiltal elamishum haitzah. The only reason why we don't allow to move things is because you can carry it out. Uh, so here we're saying because we can't move things because you might carry it out. That's the reason. So how come we're allowed to move food and everything else? You might carry it out. If the whole reason of tiltul of muktzah is because you might move it, so why should we allow to move around food and drinks? The fact, why did they not make a decree on all movements, even on food and dishes? We cannot make a gezerah on the community unless most of the community is able to stand by it. Can't tell people they can't move anything, not food and not drinks and not a vessel. So that's why they stopped at uh, avonim. But if you're saying that there's no isur hitzah, then you can move avonim as well, because there's no hitzah. The whole tiltal is because of hitzah. Elo. So what do we see from there? V'deloi mefalgi ba'avonim. Since they don't make a distinction with regards, don't make a machloikis with regards to stones, because it seems so, because stones you're not allowed to, because you're not allowed to carry on Yom Tov also. And the only question over here is, are you allowed to carry when it's not necessary? Shema no. Beitzah shelo l'tzorech pligi. That the machlokes is to carry it out when there's no need to carry. You don't need it. It's not for eichel nefesh. Are you allowed to or not? But avonim, it's muktzah. Then you're not allowed to. Again, Elo Rashi. Lo yiflog b'avonim. Since they didn't disagree in the Mishnah about stones, shmamino. So from this we see the Lakula Alma, even according to Beis Hillel, yesh heitzah liyontev. There is carrying on yontev. Not like you're trying to suggest that maybe there is no such a thing as carrying a yontev. The reason why Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel allows it, El Shemin HaTorah Hutra L'Tzorach, Torah when you need it for Eichel Nefesh, Beis Hillel Islu, and Beis Hillel holds, Kivan Hutra L'Tzorach, Hutra Min HaTorah L'Gamri. It was totally minatayra. So minatayra you can be totally.
Minotaur you can.
Ah,
Minotaur you could. There's not a problem.
you could, because since the Torah said you could carry it out for oichel nefesh, you can go and. What happens is el rabbanon gozur b'midi dahavetircha b'leitzorach. Then now it comes a rabbinic decree. If it's a tircha they don't need, can go in avonim. Like stones, they don't allow you. Aval bekotten v'sefer Torah, but a minor sefer Torah tzrichin lu b'yontev. He needs to carry the cotton. He needs a sefer Torah in shul. You need him on yontev. Lo gozer. The chachamim were not gozer. So that's why we have evidence from the case of the Mishnah that they do hold from yontev. Beis Hillel does hold by yontev. It's only that he says that hutru l'tzorech v'namish l'tzorech. But it needs to be something that you need, and not just to unnecessary totally. It has to be, or we call it tzorech tzas, carrying around stones. Shammai doesn't hold migu. He says you're not allowed to. It doesn't help. If it's not l'tzorech, you're not allowed to at all. If it's for eating that the Torah permitted that, that's okay. If it's not tzorech, it stands in the Issa. The Gemara says, "Av Rabbi Yochanan Sovar b'metoich shehutra haitzol l'tzorech." He also agrees that this is the machlokes between Misham and Beis Hillel, hutra tzorech, hutra namish l'tzorech. Pligi Beis and Beis Hillel. The kula alma yesh isur haitzol liyom tov. According to everybody, there's an isur haitzol liyom tov v'aviru kol b'machna. And the yeshno b'shar melochis. We have a question. So how come Yirmiyah says only on Shabbos? He says, no, it didn't really mean only on Shabbos. Why did he say don't take out on Shabbos specifically? He was telling them about the more serious ones, not to carry on Shabbos. Why they should list them not to carry on Shabbos. He didn't even mention Yom Tov. Not to say that Yom Tov is permissible. He was just happy that at least they're going to take care of Shabbos, not carry. So where do we see that Rabbi Yochanan holds Metech Shel Tzorech? So the Torah Tane Kamed Rabbi Yochanan. This was a Tane that was teaching in front of Yochanan. You'll do one act and you'll get 5 lashes, 5 sets of lashes. Hamavashal gid hanoshe. Gid hanoshe, that's the sinew vein which you're not allowed to eat b'cholov. So that's meat and milk on yontif, and you ate it. You'll get 5 lashes, like a chumash. Why? Like a mishum avashal gid. First of all, you're cooking a gid. It's not a food. You can't eat it. Like a mishum avashal gid. Shabishlav melochahu, because bishla is an amalocha, and an amalocha you get malchus in yontif. Ubishal gid dover asur veiner. It's something asur veiner lachilo. That's not, that still stays in the Isur of Lesasa Komalacha because it was only permitted when you need. And this is not Eichel Nefesh. And there's no tzorich, so that's number one. But like Mishum Eichel Gid, then he's going to get malchus because eating doesn't allow you to get. But like Mishum Vasa Basar B'cholov, and he's also getting malchus because he's cooking. There's by basar b'cholov, you're not allowed to cook and you're not allowed to eat. So, so when we say mevashal basar b'cholov, we're not talking about the cooking. We're talking about the mixture of basar b'cholov. Lab mishum yomtiv. It's not because cooking on yomtiv. The malchus mishum yomtiv. The malchus the bishul yomtiv atonale. We already told you before. Leikem mishum mevashal gid cooking. Elafilu choil, but what he's saying is that even if it would be during the week, the loikim mishum avashal basar b'cholov, he would be chayiv for cooking meat and milk. The ksiv lo yishavashal gedi v'chalev sholish pamim. 3 times it says lo yishavashal gedi within the milk of the mother. 3 times echad li'isar achila. So one is not allowed to eat. V'echad li'isar anoah. One is you're not allowed to benefit. V'echad li'isar b'yishul, not allowed to cook. So cooking basar b'cholov, the gid with milk, is in of itself an isur, gets lashes. The loikim shemeichel basar b'cholov, you're also going to get lashes for eating basar b'cholov, because we're talking about ochle. And finally, the loikim shumav ora, and he'll also get malchus because he is making a fire. Shimlach latzma. Besides cooking, you're just putting on a fire. Fire is a malach by itself. Now, technically, he violated one prohibition of not doing work, but he did different things. They're all called work. But Rashi explains now we hold kosover yesh chiluk malachas liyomtiv, that we can make a difference to malachas. If you do different malachas, even though they're all included in loisasa kol malacha, but each malacha gets its own distinction. Lilka shtayim al shtei malachas b'shum yomtiv. You can get two. If you did two different malachas, even though there's one pasuk loisasa kol malacha, you can get two malchus.
But you can't get 2 sets of malchus if you do one action that falls under 2 isurim. Isn't that kimle b'deravmine that you can't
Oh,
get
yeah,
a?
okay. Well, that's another. That's when there's a more serious and a more lesser. We would say kom the rabbine, or sometimes we would say you have to the lesser one. You can't iyata mamise. But in this case, this is two malchuses that would not apply. Over here, you could give the two malchuses. But the question is only, does he deserve two malchuses because he did violated one prohibition, is doing work on Shabbat? What do I care which kind of work I did? I did this and this, but that's what Rashi explains. That this Tana holds that there is a difference. If you do a different work, you get different lashes, even though you're doing work on Shabbat. It's not just one thing of work. So Amalei, so Rabbi Chaim told him, Puk Tani Livro. Go teach it to the outside. He disagrees. He said, you're wrong, basically. Havora ubishul, uh, these when you talk about making a fire and cooking, why should there be a malchus over there? Because you're saying it's not echol nefesh, but metech shuter l'tzerach, shuter namish l'tzerach. These two malachas, havor and bishul, the Yom Tov ain't a Mishnah. That's not a Mishnah. That's not a Lilkois Aleim to get Malchus for them. Why? The Metech Shutu L'Tzerech, Shutu Namish L'Tzerech Min HaTorah. So you're allowed to do this because since Havor is Tzerech and Bishul L'Tzerech, you're allowed. You can do Shlo L'Tzerech. It's ain't a Mishnah. Ain't a Mishnah means L'Nishtis Me'elim Beis HaMedrash. Nobody's ever said it. It's not a Mishnah. It's not learned. The Im Tim Tzalemer Mishnah. If you're going to insist, the Tana is going to say that it was learned, Shanishnis, then Vadai Beis Shammai Shono, then Shonoha. It must be Beis Shammai. The Amri, Beis Shammai holds, Lo Yamri Metach Shehutro, Etzol Letzerech, Hutro Nami Shelo Letzerech. So we don't say Letzerech Nami Ochanami Lemrinon, Metach Shehutre Havor Letzerech, Hutro Nami Shelo Letzerech. According to Beis Shammai, we're not going to say that you're allowed to. The Beis Hillel, because if it goes like Beis Hillel, Kiv on the Amri Metech Shehutra Hutza Letzerech Hutra Nami Shaloi Letzerech Hachanami Metech Shurabor Letzerech Hutra Nami Shaloi Letzerech Avora and Bishul, and therefore there would be no Malchus for Avora and Bishul on Yontev because Metech Shehutra Letzerech Hutra Nami Shaloi Letzerech. So this is where we see that Rabbi Yochanan also holds that the reason of our Mishnah is that's why Bis Hillel say that it's okay, not because they don't believe that there is an inyan of Bishul and Yontif, but because we hold okay, we covered the Mishnah. That's pretty good, I think.